7, which is the first one on step parenting skills. We want to wish all the mothers out there and the grandmas happy Mother's Day. And we hope that you enjoy your day with your families. If you're not able to be with your families, we just hope you still find a way to enjoy the day. And blessings, love and blessings upon you. And here's Larry to start lesson 7.
Okay. As Carol said, this was step parenting skills. This is going to be mostly about the blessings of parenthood. And then next week we'll get into more of the issues that come with step parenting. And then we'll have one more on parenting kind of things after that. So let's get started. See if the laptop will cooperate. Okay, so this lesson is focused on the blessings of parenthood in general and being a step parent in particular. And I always like to start this one off with talking about some famous biblical step parents. I have seen a few people on Facebook and other places that one in particular I remember from several years ago was like, blended families are not biblical. Well, anywhere you look in the Old Testament, I mean, you got multiple wives, you got half brothers, half sisters. Very common for a brother to take over a family if the other brother is dead or got killed or whatever. So there was hundreds and thousands of examples of people stepping up to be a parent to someone that wasn't their biological child. Joseph was basically a stepfather to Jesus, so he's probably the most famous. He was not Jesus's biological father. He was married to his biological mother, so that pretty much makes him a stepdad. And then we have Mordecai, who was actually an uncle to Esther, but he raised her after her parents were killed. So he was sort of a stepfather. Definitely a father figure, but technically he was an uncle. And then we have Pharaoh's daughter, who raised Moses as her own. If you look in Exodus 2:10, it says, "And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, because I drew him out of the water." Moses' actual mother, because there was a decree that all the firstborn Jewish Hebrew male children were to be killed.
Under 2, right.
The mother hid him away for a while, but then she sent him down the river. But she put him in a basket and set him in the river, and he floated down a ways, and he ended up in some reeds and everything. And when the Pharaoh's daughter was out there close to the river with her entourage, one of them, heard a baby crying and went and found him and brought him to the Pharaoh's daughter, and she had mercy on him, took him in, raised him in the castle in Pharaoh's home as one of their own. And Moses became like number 2 in the kingdom after a while. So God does things the way he wants to. And just because it's a little different doesn't mean it's wrong. If we're being followers of God, then we know he has a plan. He's going to do things his way, and it's our job to just kind of go with his flow. We always end up in a little bit of a trouble here and there if we start doing it our way. I like to distinguish, for purposes of the class, between mother and father and mom and dad. So if I'm talking about mother or father, I'm usually talking about the biological parents, and mom and dad would be the person who's actually doing the parenting. So that could be the step parent, but that's one way that I make a distinction between the two. I usually called my folks mom and dad, so that's the main reason I do that. I hardly ever use mother or father, but I didn't know too many people that actually said mother or father if they were actually talking to them. So, next slide here. As much as children are a gift from God, it is vital to remember that so is your spouse. Your spouse will most likely be around a lot longer than your kids.
Hopefully.
And as we talk about in the pyramid here, God is first and your spouse is second, even before the children. And that's the main reason that the spouse is number two, is because hopefully they'll be around a lot longer than the kids. You know, you spend 30, 40, 50 years with a spouse, 20 maybe, you know, raising your kid. Now, generally at some point they usually move off and they got their own family, and you know, ours generally were living out of state for most of the time, and they're all here in Arizona now, but you know, we didn't get to see the grandkids really grow up that much.
No, we didn't.
The older ones anyway, because they spent 20 years in back east. So it's vital that as a married couple you spend a significant amount of time working on the marriage, making sure that's in good shape, because part of the job of a married couple is to show the children, as it says here, your job as parents is to demonstrate to your children how to be godly spouses and parents, because you're teaching them what to do when they get their own families, right? And we've done the last couple of generations have done a pretty lousy job of teaching the children what marriage is all about, how to do it, because we've gotten away from God. There's no fault divorce and all kinds of stuff like that make it really easy to just break up a family. And as I think most people have found out, the children really suffer the most when there's a divorce. So in a house where it could be yours, mine, and ours, it's really important that there's one set of rules.
Right.
And it's our house, our rules. Carol's very familiar with what happens when you have
I had 3 sets.
3 sets of rules.
One for his kids, one for my kids, and one for our kid. It does not work.
Yeah.
It does not.
Because obviously when there's different sets of rules, one set of kids is going to be jealous of the others.
Well, he made it very noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
Like my kids would get, for example, a doll. The doll that my daughter had from the year before, I was able to buy a new dress for the doll to try to disguise the doll. For his daughters, there was no expense to buy a new doll for each of them.
Right.
And that was very noticeable.
Well, yeah. Especially to the kids.
Yeah,
So
very.
they're going to know that right away.
And very hurtful to me. But, yeah.
So, again, this is about parenting and step parenting skills. So it's so important to have agreement.
Right.
And this is what's really important about parenting. When the parents, the spouses, the parents are in agreement on the parenting rules,
Right.
that gives them the power and the authority to be the parents. When the parents are in disagreement, and we see it a lot in blended families because these are my kids and those are your kids, and I don't like how you're parenting my kids. There's all that kind of stuff. So there's turmoil and chaos everywhere.
Well, there's also some that are, okay, I'll agree with you, yeah, this is what we're going to do, but then behind their back,
Yeah.
because we know situations have happened like that.
Oh yeah, lots.
You don't tell your dad or your stepdad that I'm doing this, but I'm gonna buy you this and hide it,
Yeah.
and you cannot do that.
Yeah. So obviously we're talking about the way things should be
Right.
in a godly home, right? A lot of them aren't,
Yeah.
and it shows. It's noticeable. But spouses need to be able to talk about what's good, what's not good, how do they want to do things, and find places of agreement so that the kids aren't playing them against each other, which is usually what happens.
Oh, yeah.
When there is disagreement, the kids play the parents against each other. It's like it's their job.
And then the kids will torment the other kids.
Oh yeah, that
You know,
too.
I got this and you didn't.
Yeah.
We know the games.
Yeah. So, you know, it's often yours, mine, and ours. Not always, but very often. But like we said, there just has to be one set of rules for everybody. Now, like in the back in the pyramid, we're talking about the fact that parents don't be owners of your kids because they're from God and they belong to Him, and it's your job to be a good steward of His kids. That's why it's our kids. It's not yours and mine, it's all ours. Right? You got to treat them all like they belong to God. And when that happens, things work a lot better. It's never perfect, but it's better. Especially better than when it's my kids versus your kids, which is very often what happens in a blended family.
And to treat them all the same, because we've had couples that we have counseled, and one of the spouses will say, well, I can get along with the son, but I can't the daughter.
Oh, yeah.
You don't pick and choose. It's all of them all the same, all the time. It has to be,
Yeah.
you know, what would Jesus say and what would Jesus do? You treat them all with love and respect, and everything is in harmony. But when it's not, you see there's definitely a problem, and definitely an issue.
Yeah. When I inherited Carol's 3 kids, you know, being the husband / brand new stepfather, I guess I could say I was smart enough not to come in and just like be a bully and say, okay, I'm the head of the household here, so this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Now, I inherited a 17, a 15, and a 4-year-old.
Right.
So there's no way a 17 and a 15 are going to just obey, right? Especially in our situation. But one of the things I did was to take it upon myself to find a way to relate to them on things they were interested in. The older daughter wasn't all that open, but the son was all in music and sports and, you know, those kind of things, which at least at that time I was trying to learn how to play a guitar, and I was all into sports, baseball, basketball, all that kind of stuff. So we had that we could relate on. And the younger one sort of adopted me, I think.
Mm-hmm. You did.
But so that was easy. And she, out of the 3, she's the one that actually calls me Dad.
Yeah, even now, today,
Even
yeah.
this morning.
42 years ago, yeah, even this morning, they brought us breakfast, her and her 2 boys.
So, you know, it's as the new guy in an existing family, I had to be the one to find a way to relate to what was already there. You know, I would have expected Carol to do the same thing if she was joining me in my family. You know, she wasn't just going to jump in and be the boss of everybody.
Right.
Probably. Maybe. I don't know.
I was pretty aggressive.
Pretty strong-willed,
Yes.
authoritative.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But
don't just come in and try to be a boss.
But my older daughter, the reason there was some friction there, Larry, is because her and I were more or less like sisters.
Yeah.
More than daughter and sister.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, daughter and mom, because we spent a lot of time together. We went through a lot of crap together. And when I started the relationship with you, then her and my time with her got split.
Yeah.
And she resented that, and she didn't know where to go to find that relationship that was all of a sudden very minimized.
Yeah.
That's why there were issues there.
Right. Plus, it was a little tough for her to trust
Oh yeah,
somebody new.
right.
So,
Especially a male figure.
Yeah.
Yes. And,
so you know, we found a way to work around all that stuff, and you know that was, even though we weren't really Christian necessarily, we didn't do any church stuff. We were raised with Christian principles, but we didn't go to church or any of that kind of stuff. But you know, we did some things right.
God still
Didn't
had
really
his
know
hand.
why, but
God
we did them
still had
right.
his hand on it.
Yeah,
He did.
we can definitely see that now. But you know, one of the things, talking about yours, mine, and ours, is, you know, we have the proverb that says, you know, we are supposed to train up the child in the way they should go. And when they're old, they won't depart from it. Now, I guess that would apply to me, because I was sort of trained up in that way. But when I was younger, I turned away from it, and then when I got older, I turned back to it. But anyway, so make sure you're in agreement, being good stewards of what belongs to God, and train up the child in the way they should go, figure out what their gifts are, and allow them to use those gifts. And we should be teaching them to use their gifts to help the kingdom, right? That's a godly way of doing it. So now when it comes to blending, generally speaking, children under 12 blend easier than kids over 12. Their job is to test you, especially the new person, the new dad, the new mom, whatever. And they see it as their job to see how far they can push you. Now, if you're not aware of that, you will get bent out of shape in some way because you don't quite understand what it is they're doing, right? So they will test you and do things to test the boundaries, like we all do. We know God says, here's the boundaries. You can do anything inside the box. But as soon as you get outside the box, there's going to be consequences. Because now you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Well, they'll start off, they'll stick their big toe over the line, see if anything gets smashed. You're going to step on it, you're going to cut it off, or whatever. And more than likely, nothing happens. Oh, okay, well, now I'm going to stick my whole foot over, see what happens. They just keep pushing, pushing, pushing. How far can I go? You know? And but what they're testing is really your will to enforce the boundaries. Right? Now, like in this back a paragraph here, we're talking about our house, our rules. Again, if you're not in agreement on what the boundaries are, they will play you. They might obey one, but they'll go way out of the bounds with the other one.
Yep.
And then now you're at odds, because now you're not in agreement. So now you're going to be fighting, and so that the children were just used as a tool in the hands of the enemy to get you at odds. See, that's how that spiritual warfare thing works. Even the ones you love, your spouse, your children, are the favorite tools in the hands of Satan to get you away from God, to get you into the flesh. Now, as kids get into the teenage years, obviously they're more about themselves. They're not so much about the family in most cases. Like the ones 12 and under tend to still want to be part of the group, generally speaking. And obviously not always, but more than likely, especially 10 and under, it's like, I want to be part of this group here, because they still need that security of belonging to something. 12 and over, now they're starting to be those teenagers, and they're in middle school, and peer pressure and all this kind of stuff starts kicking in. And so they try to be a little more independent. Again, they're really going to start pushing those boundaries that you've set just to see what you'll do.
Well, they're counting the days before they're 18, and then they can legally do what they want to do.
Then they're legally adults.
Yeah.
Even
They're counting the days.
Even though legally they're adults, but they're probably in their head they're still 13, right? In the old days, like in the Old Testament, the Hebrews especially, at age 12 they had their bar mitzvahs or bat mitzvahs. You were considered an adult.
Right.
They didn't have this whole teenage period. And in the culture today, teenager means you can get into all kind of trouble because you're not really responsible for anything. Until you hit 18, now they can treat you as an adult. Depending on how serious the crime is, if you're 16, 17, they may try to treat you as an adult, but it's got to be really, really serious to do that. So, they think, well, I can do it. Whatever I do, if I get in trouble for it, go to juvenile detention, whatever. When I turn 18, that all goes away. Right? No big deal. So, in the Christian home, the parents need to be in agreement, so they have the authority and the power to be the parents, the good stewards of God's kids, and then they can at least have that authority to tell the teenagers why they shouldn't do certain things. That's one of the things about parenting. It's because I said so. We like to do that. But the teenagers especially really need to understand the why. Mm-hmm. They don't get a why very often.
Right.
But if they get a why, then okay, bad consequences, right? But the older children do tend to rebel more, and we'll talk about that more next week because that's more about the dark side of step parenting, and so we'll save that for next week. Slow laptop. We really need to get a new one.
No, but I love it. I don't want to change it. There you go.
I was waiting to see if it was going to go twice.
Is this where you talk about the 3-year-old, Larry? Who's in
No, when
charge? Who's in charge?
Yeah. There was a study done a while back. I don't remember who did it, but it's been quite a few years ago that we heard it.
Yeah.
That by the time a child is 3, they know who's in charge. Mm-hmm. Either you are or they are.
Yeah. And unfortunately, most of the time it's them.
Yeah. And so 3-year-olds are generally, we often
on the show.
make the comment that the inmates are running the asylum, right? And if you're, again, if you're not in agreement as spouses on how to do the parenting, that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The inmates are going to be running the place, right? I was pretty much an only child for almost 14 years, so it was not that easy for me to get outside the boundaries.
Well, your mom was a school teacher. She wouldn't want you outside the boundaries either.
Right. And if I got outside the boundaries anywhere close to school, I'd get it worse when I got home.
So you were embarrassing her
Well,
at the school.
that was sort of implied, you know, don't make me look bad.
Right.
But anyway, since we're going to be focusing on blessings first, we're going to look at some scriptures with the 12 and under group in mind. And these are out of the Old King James, so they sound a little odd sometimes. But there are blessings from having children, and there are blessings from raising godly children. Right? So I look at Psalms 127:3. Lo, children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. So having children is a blessing from God. It's a gift. I know some people seem to think that kids are basically just a pain in the butt or an expense, and that's why so many children or so many people are waiting so late in life to even have kids or just not have any because they're selfish. They don't understand that. You know, they don't have a relationship with God, so they're all about themselves. You know, it's a selfish thing. But there's just so many blessings of having kids. I mean, who's going to take care of you when you're old and decrepit, right? Proverbs 23:24, the father of the righteous, the father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. So when you do a really good job as a dad, raising up godly offspring, part of that is treating your wife with love and respect, showing your children how to do that. There will be a lot less negativity in that relationship. You'll love your kid, they will love you because you were loving to them growing up and you weren't a constant threat or, you know, heavy-handed, abusive kind of person. And when they're older, they'll do well, and you can be proud of your kid. Proverbs 20:11, even a child is known by his doings, whether his work be pure and whether it be right. Now, obviously I didn't understand this when I was a kid, but you know, we lived in a relatively small community with a lot of farms around. Everybody knew who the rebels were. Who were the kids you didn't want your kid hanging out with, right? Everybody in the whole place knew that because they knew the kids. They knew the parents, right? So everybody knows because they know who's doing what, right? The neighborhood talks amongst itself. I remember a family that lived down the road a little bit. They were always the ones with, you know, racing up and down the street with the hot rods. And usually if anything got stolen, you kind of knew who it was, probably. I mean, that was the first one you'd go to.
Oh, that's who they would assume, yes.
Yeah, that was the assumption.
Right.
Children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers. Okay, so grandchildren are the crown of old men. The glory of the child is the dad, having a good, godly father who has a good name, right? You have your dad's name. And if your dad's a POS, you have a lot to overcome because of His name, right? So our job as godly husbands and fathers is to create a good name,
Good legacy.
have good integrity. You're a stand-up person in the community. People can count on you. You do what you say you're going to do, and those kind of things, because that's what the children end up having to wear.
Right.
Get a sip of coffee here. Okay, so that was the blessings. Just a few examples. This section is talking about what our job is as parents. So we talked about some of the blessings of being a parent. Now we're going to be talking about what our job is as a parent. So this is teaching, correction, discipline, and punishment. We have to set boundaries, reinforce the boundaries, break bad behavior and create new ones, and enforce penalties for continued bad behavior. So the first one we always go to is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And I've heard that pretty much all my life, but only the last couple of years I realized that part there where it says, and when he is old.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do we know that turn away from God in their 20s, 30s, 40s?
Lots, yeah.
I did. It wasn't until I hit 50 that I turned back. So, is that officially old?
Yeah.
When you're 50?
I mean, these kids today, they hear that you're 30, they think that's old.
Yeah. 50's the new 30. Now, this is where we sort of get in a little bit of trouble with today's culture, but this is biblical, so don't blame me. It is what it is. Proverbs 22:15. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. We do not need to teach them how to be bad. It's in there from day one. It takes a year or two for it to, the terrible twos. Mm-hmm. That's when it starts coming out, I guess. Mm-hmm. So foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Now today, you spank a child they call CPS, and you're the one that goes to jail for abuse, right? Now, in our house, we had the Board of Education. It had my name on it. It had holes in it. A nice handle. Pow! Partly because I guess my mom was a teacher, but my dad was the one that used it. And the thing that always got me was he'd always lie to me and say it's going to hurt him more than me. That must have really, really hurt him bad, because I sure felt it. But this is what God is telling us. We as human beings are bent because of sin towards evil. And
We're all sinners.
yeah, we're all sinners. We're born into sin.
Yeah.
And then the next one right after that, withhold not correction from the child, for if you beat them with the rod, he will not die. Now that's some pretty heavy stuff right there. And you can't, in the culture today with the legal things the way they are, you really can't do that unless you start real early.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you're not leaving any marks. The kid hasn't heard of CPS yet. I'm talking like 2, 3, 4 years old, right? That's when you really need to be teaching them what the boundaries are and that there are consequences for disobeying. But when they're teenagers and stuff like that, you can't really do that.
This is where I kind of like to refer to our younger daughter. I remember her and her girlfriend having a discussion in our kitchen, and I'm trying to act like I wasn't listening to what they were saying, but her girlfriend was pregnant with her first child, and the girlfriend was saying to our daughter, well, you know, I gotta practice the mom look. You know, where your mom looks at you and you know you're in trouble, doesn't have to say a word, just the look. So she says, we need to practice that look. And I thought, oh my God, I have never heard anything so silly in my life, but yet they were right, because our moms gave us those looks.
Oh yeah.
My dad never gave a look, he just would hit.
Yeah.
He didn't care what was going on. If he felt he needed to slap somebody, he would. But my mom would give the look, so I knew what the girls were talking about.
Oh yeah.
And today that still is true if they have started that when the kids are little, as you say.
Yeah.
You don't start that when they're 10 years old. You have to do it before. And, you know, it's just fact.
Yeah. I always knew I was in trouble when I heard my middle name. It was pretty serious if I heard my middle name.
I sometimes didn't even get a warning. I mean, my father just haul off and
I never had that. But, you know, I would wait till your father gets home. And then I'd have to sit in my room for a couple hours or whatever till he got home, and when he was coming, I could see him down the road, and then I knew, here we go. It's almost time for the execution, right? So, you know, I mean, this is what my parents did. They did not spare the rod, and they used it on more than one occasion, right? Yeah, I feel like I turned out okay.
But they always did it not in anger.
Well, that's very true.
They never did it in anger. And your mom afterwards would always reinforce, now you know why you received the punishment you did. It's because da 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 da. We don't want you to do it again. And that was amazing to me, because like I said, I would get whacked. I didn't even know what I'd done.
Right.
And a lot of times I didn't do anything.
And that's
just because he was drunk and he felt I was close and he just hit me.
Yeah. Probably just because you were close.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing. That was kind of the lesson I got from that experience, was just the fact that correction is done out of love. It is not done out of anger. It's not done when angry. You know, it was always, okay, you're in big trouble, but wait until your father gets home. I caught you, but I'm not the one that's going to hit you, right?
Well, they did it together, which is awesome.
And that was the way it worked. They were they'd both be sitting on the edge of my bed, and okay, you know, my dad's got the paddle, and okay, get over my knee here, you know, and here we go. But then my mom was there to sort of pick up the pieces. But yeah, like you said, they would explain, we don't really want to do this, but here's what you did, right? Yes, you did that, right? Yeah. Don't do it again.
Well, rocks in the gas tank, Larry, that was really a no-no.
I was pretty little when I did that, but it was when I spray painted license plates. That was not a good thing. So anyway, again, this is where you really got to be in agreement on how you're going to correct and punish. You really got to be in agreement on that, because the way society is now, if you spank, which, you know, 20, 30 years ago was not a big deal. Now it's a big deal, because there's been so much abuse and people are hitting out of anger and stuff like that. You know, it's nothing for a child to just pick the phone up and call CPS and say, hey, I'm being abused. And then you're in big doo-doo, right? So the rod of correction is supposed to be used, and it's not going to kill the kid, right? That's what the scripture says. But you have to figure out a way, and that's what I'm saying, be in agreement on how you're going to do this, because the rod of correction is not considered appropriate these days. So you got to come up with a different way of doing that. Hear, children, the instruction of a father, and attend to know understanding. So it's a father's job to instruct. It's the child's job to figure out what that means, to get understanding from what the teaching is, right? But the dad needs to be aware that he needs to be able to teach and instruct in a way that is able to be understood.
Right.
You can't just blah and expect the kid to understand what you mean.
Which we get into more next week.
Yeah. Demonstration is a good way.
Right.
I learned a lot just from watching, but I was generally the kid holding the flashlight when my dad was working on a car or whatever. He didn't hand me the wrench and say, "Here, turn that bolt."
Yeah.
You know, just point it, get it back where it belongs. You know, usually that was, I'd get the light off to where it wasn't supposed to be. Usually is what happened. So, Proverbs 5:7 is a lot like that other one. Hear me now, therefore, children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. So again, listen to the instruction and do what they say, right? I know nobody really likes to obey because we want to do our own thing, but that's where the consequences come in. If we are obedient, there's blessings and not consequences for the most part. Again, another one similar, hearken unto me now, therefore, O children, and attend to the words of my mouth. That's basically the same thing. And Proverbs 8:32, so we got Proverbs chapter 4, 5, 7, and 8, all saying pretty much the same thing. It must be pretty important. And it's 4 times. 3 times it's very important. This is 4. So, hearken unto me, for blessed are they that keep my ways. Kind of the same thing. Now the other 2 are almost exactly the same. Proverbs 4, a little different, but that's the one that kind of gets it started just by saying, "Hey, kids, listen to your dad." And hear what he's saying. Don't just listen, but hear. Okay. That was pretty quick. Okay, we've gone from the blessings to the responsibilities of a parent. Now we're looking at a legacy of being a good parent. Okay, Matthew 25:21. His Lord said unto him, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord." So that's what we all want to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. Right? Now, one of those interesting little things is here, I will make thee ruler over many things. So when we get to heaven, we're going to be rulers over stuff. If we're a good and faithful servant. I suppose there's always that guy that just barely slides in and his pants are on fire. You know, last breath. Help me, Jesus. You know, and then, okay, close enough. Just barely gets in, but he was kind of on fire there for a minute. So we all want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Proverbs, most of these are Proverbs. 27, the just man walks in his integrity, his children are blessed after him. We kind of mentioned that in the responsibility section. When a father, especially, is a stand upright kind of guy in the community, people know who he is. He never gets into trouble. He's not somebody who goes out and gets drunk. He's not cheating on his wife, you know, those kind of things. He's a just man. He's righteous. Therefore, God blesses his children because this father has created a good name for himself, so the children who also have that name are looked at as something similar to the dad, right? Well, he's this kind of a guy, so his children must be okay. But people are still going to look at the children and know what they did. Now, if they're out there causing trouble, they're going to be looking at the dad like, well, maybe he's not so righteous after all. Okay? A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, his grandkids, and the wealth of the sinners is laid up for the just. There are many examples of people who lived for themselves. Money was their god. They created very big net worths, billions. A lot of billionaires, I suppose. There's quite a few billionaires. But we've also seen where people have created businesses or, various different companies, depending on what kind of a business it is and different things. And when that person is gone, that place that may have been a den of iniquity, which, a drug house or, something like that, where they make tons of money, but it's all illegal, maybe a brothel, house of prostitution or something like that, where there's just a lot of sin going on, that property ends up in the hands of somebody righteous when they're gone. And it gets turned into, something more for the kingdom. Quite a few examples of that kind of thing. Proverbs 31, this is about being a good mom. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. So when mom, or the wife, is a godly wife, the husband is all full of praise, and the kids, are full of praise. So it pays to be a godly person. Your kids do a lot better. They love you more, and God blesses the whole deal. Proverbs 10:1, Proverbs of Solomon, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother. So if you've done a good job as a dad, and you've raised a son who is wise and does well, dads are proud of their son. But the son who's out there, you see a lot of drug addicts. The moms are just a wreck, because all they think about is their son who's who knows where, maybe on a street somewhere, just, one shot from an overdose, or, who knows. And one who just isn't that smart, that wise, I should say. Wise is not the same as smart. Wise knows what to do with smarts. You can be really intelligent and be a fool still. So we're talking somebody that's smart enough to know right from wrong. But those sons, daughters too, who are just out in the world doing all kind of crazy stuff, the mom is the one who suffers the most.
Because she's the relational one.
Exactly. She's the one that really loves her kids unconditionally.
No matter what.
And when they're out doing all kind of crazy stuff, the mom is just a wreck. Just because they know what the deal is, right? The last thing a mom wants is to lose a kid, to whatever reason. The memory of the just is blessed, but the name of the wicked shall rot. There was one example in particular. There was, I think the name, the just family was Edwards, I think. And I don't remember which is part of this. I don't remember the name of the wicked ones, but they had a big example. You know, this family tree of this righteous person. There were lots of doctors, lawyers, you know, judges. You know, all these, you know, very well-known community professional people who served others and so forth. And there was like 300 and some of them over 3 or 4 generations. There's like 300 and some people that came from that family tree. And then they had this other family who were all drunks and prostitutes and thieves and murderers, and most of them were in jail. And I mean, nobody really remembers that name unless they Google it, because that is there. But there's like maybe 100 people. So a whole lot fewer people, because they were mostly selfish and they didn't care about kids, and the few kids that were there didn't amount to anything compared to somebody who was raised in a family where they actually served the community and each other and were more godly. Okay. The wise, this is Proverbs 3:35, the wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of fools. So again, wisdom versus foolishness.
And selfishness.
Selfishness is part of being a fool, right? Because it's all about you. You don't care about anybody else. You're not serving the kingdom. You don't care about God. The wise understand that they need to be serving God. That's wisdom. Again, I think you can say somebody's smart if they know there's a God.
Yeah.
But the wise are the ones that are serving God, doing something for the kingdom, demonstrating their faith. So, again, the legacy that we're talking about, we talked about the blessings of being a parent or a step-parent. We talked about the roles and responsibilities of being a parent or a step-parent. And now we're talking about that legacy of if you are a good parent or you're not. What are you going to leave behind, right? If you're a good parent, the wise shall inherit glory. If you raise up a bunch of foolish kids, that name's going to disappear eventually. And many of them will die young, and many of them will be in jail.
You can change it any time, Larry. I mean,
Well,
you can
that's
turn your life around and redo, because God is all about redos.
a good point.
You know, we didn't know all this, obviously, when we were bringing up our children, when you were helping me finish raising my children, especially the teenagers.
Mhm.
But you can change, and you can get educated and redo.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Glad you brought that up, because what we've got here in the scriptures is if you do this, here's what happens.
Right.
But like in the New Testament, this is all pretty much Old Testament, right? So now the whole point is any point in time in your life, you can turn back, either turn or turn back to God.
Right.
And then all this stuff applies, right? You can be the fool for a while, like it says in 22:6 Proverbs, train up the child in the way he's go, and when he's old, he'll not depart from it. So, there's always that point in time where you still got that chance to turn back, repent from your sins, come back to God, and then the blessings kick in again. But when you've turned your back on God, you're dealing with consequences. And, a lot of times we wonder why it seems like all the criminals get away with stuff. Like, why isn't God getting them? Well, I always think about, where it talks about, when it rains on everybody, not just the just, right? But it's, where do you end up? You may get away with a lot of stuff here, but if you end up in hell, what good did that do you? So the big question that needs to be answered is, where are you going to end up? after you're done here. I think that might be it. Oh, yeah. The one last thing to kind of wrap this up is once you've done all these things, you've lived your life, you've raised your kids, that at some point, which is number 3 on here, you're a steward of God's kids, somewhere from 18 to 25 years, and then you got to give them back. That's the important thing that is difficult for a lot of parents,
Right. Especially
Right.
moms.
especially moms, because they just feel like they're the owners. That it's hard to distinguish between my property and God's property, right? Because if
Or-
it's your property, you don't want to give it away.
Or it's my kid and you can't do the adult to adult now because
Right.
they are older. You just still keep thinking it's my kid.
It's my baby.
Even at 60, it's my
Yeah.
kid.
Right. So you do your job as a parent, and then at some point you say, "Okay, God, I'm giving your kid back to you. You thank you for giving them to me for a while. Here you go. They're yours now. I'm going to keep praying for them. I'm going to keep loving them. I know they're my child, but they're your property. And hopefully I did my job. I raised them up in the way they should go. They're going to love you and all that. But, the one thing that's really tough for a parent, especially if it's a good parent, you hate to see your kid fall and get hurt,
Oh, yeah.
right? And that's where it's, part of being a good parent, according to the Word of God, is you let the kid
To allow them.
fall on their face, skin their knees or their elbows, feel the pain of whatever led to that thing, so that they get the experience of knowing, well, okay, if I do that, then this could happen. But if you keep catching them before they hit the dirt, they never feel the dirt. They never feel the pain of the dirt or the cement, right? So what do they learn? Oh, mom's going to catch me, or dad's going to catch me. No harm, no foul. So that's what's difficult a lot of times, is for the parent to actually kind of go through that mental process of, okay, Lord, here you go. And now I'm just going to be another adult to an adult relationship here. They have their life. They have to answer to you. They don't answer to me anymore. They're still my kid, but they answer to you here. And whatever decisions they make, they make. Our job as parents is to keep praying for them. But we got to give them back to God at some point.
Sorry. That's very hard.
And it's hard.
Lots of parents.
Yeah. We've seen it, 60, 70-year-old parents are still trying to boss their kids around. And it's driving the kids nuts. Because they've been ready to be on their own for a long time. It's almost like they're sitting around waiting for their parents to die so they can be free. But that's not good. If the parent understands the process,
Godly life.
they're stewards of God's children, and at some point they got to give them back to God, because we all answer to God as an individual, right? I don't answer to God for the kids. They don't answer to Him for me, right? So,
But he is going to say, what did you do with that family I gave you, Larry?
he'll probably ask me that.
Yeah, he will.
He may not ask you.
No, I said he's going to ask you,
Yeah.
Larry.
Right.
What did you do with that family I gave you?
Yeah.
And you will be accountable.
Because he gave me your family.
Yes, yes he did. He
So,
blessed you.
yeah, I guess you could say that. So, anyway, just kind of wrapping things up here. As you've seen, if you've done a good job, your children will be a blessing not only to you in your later years, but to many others. If you've been a slacker, you may well suffer even more than they do. Because ignore you, they'll steal your money, all kind of nasty stuff. You see it all the time. Children will take advantage of their parents who may have some money laying around. Maybe their mental acuity is not so hot anymore. They're up in age. They did well, and there's an estate there, and you see it all the time. Somebody comes in, and all they do is they just want the estate. They could care less about mom or dad.
Yeah.
They just want the money.
Well, and we're seeing a lot these days, businesses that the parents spent years building up.
Right.
And that in the will, it goes to the children. And I mean, we've seen it even here in Phoenix. And in less than a year, the kids have changed the name of the business, changed how the business works, and a lot of them have gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
They don't want to do the work, continue the hard work that their parents did, building it up. They want the easy way out.
Yeah.
They want the money, they want the results, but they're not willing to do the same thing the parents did. And that's how the world is today. The world is changing. It's not just these kids, it's the whole world changing like that.
Yeah. Everything gets, kind of goes to hell in a handbasket, and then Jesus comes back.
Like we heard just this week, a gal who has a daughter that isn't even 18 yet. The mom took a long time for her to even get a house. Got a house, and now she's trying to decide if she wants to sell that one and get a different one. And the girl that's not even 18, she said, well, I want you to give me that house. I said, wait a minute here. She hasn't even had a job. Why did she expect you to give her that house?
Yeah.
That is not right.
Yeah. The expectation of this current generation is kind of warped. They really haven't had to work for much.
No.
Our generation had to work for stuff.
When I was 8 years old, I had 3 jobs.
Yeah.
8 years old.
You worked more than you should have.
I know, but 8 years old. And here's this one that's not even 18, but she wants to start what her mom's got.
Oh yeah,
It took her for almost 40 years to get that.
Yeah, I think that really kind of sums it up.
They feel like they're owed that.
They want to start where they're at.
It's
not
just unreal.
Go through the process of what their parents went through to get where they are today. They just want to pick up where they left off and start from there, which is, a house, a car, all this kind of stuff. And,
Hand it to them.
Yeah, just, here. This is what I've been used to growing up, so I should still have that.
And I just,
But,
wow.
When, I was 16, 17, obviously I wanted a car. That's all I could think about, getting a car. Well, my folks wanted me to get an education. So they didn't want me getting a job and all this kind of stuff because
or a girlfriend.
Well, that was the unmentioned part of the whole thing, I think. But they wanted me to focus on school, graduate, go to college, and those kind of things. And, then get a decent job. Then I could do whatever,
Right.
But, saw the guy across the street had an old, because this was back in the 60s, this was like a 51 Chevy or something. It was already like 10 years old. It was like $100. And I'm like, I got $100, Well, then there's insurance, and then there's gas, and this and that, and everything else. Yeah, it's one thing to buy it. We talked about this a week or two ago. It's one thing to obtain something.
Right.
It's a whole other thing to maintain it.
Maintain it. Right.
So they convinced me that maybe it's not the right time for that. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the class today. I want to give a shout out again to Christian Living Radio, who puts our podcasts out there on Spotify and iHeartRadio and a whole bunch of other internet channels.
As well as the weekly radio station for us.
Yeah. So we record this, give them the audio. We're also, the videos out there on Facebook. And we keep those on hand for a while. So next
Premarital-
week,
Premarital till still we're
yeah, there's still
registering.
taking registrations for a premarital for blended families on the 22nd.
2nd of May from 9 to 4. It's an all-day training, yes.
Yeah, so we have to have all the registrations in by the 15th so we can figure up the food and everything. It does come with breakfast and lunch and books and things. It's $55 a couple. I think it's $30 for a single.
And it is on our website.
Registration on blendedfamiliesministry.org. You can use PayPal. I believe you can still just do a credit card if you want to do that
Yeah, you can.
without going through PayPal. I think that works. At least it did on the website.
Yes.
Tried to do that on my phone and it wouldn't let me go to just a credit card, so I'm not sure. But anyway, just depends on where you're at, I guess. So
Well, if
that's
anybody
it.
has a problem, they can just send us a quick message
Sure.
on Facebook.
And I guess that's it. Next week, like I said, we'll be talking more about the dark side of step parenting, and because there's just a lot of examples that are pretty bad. But we want to help you. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the bad stuff, but how to get around the bad stuff or how to deal with it. So,
With God's help, you can do anything.
right. So that's it for this week. We'll see you next week.
And again, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and grandmas out there. Enjoy your day with your family.
Yep.